just a short presentation by Paul on what's really going on.
Thank you, Larry. So, about 2 hours worth tonight. Especially I won't be heard. All right, well, you know, I've got a number of things I can talk about here. Let's see, reflexive law would be one. Operation Jade Helm 15, how many have heard of that? I bet.
Not very many.
Brown's lie. Which one? Jerry's lie. His biggest lie. And the immigration issue. So, but have that in mind. I take questions before I start getting into the subject matter. So, if you have something that you're thinking about, what's bugging you, I'm here to help. Any questions at this point? Yes?
Since we keep seeing more and more chemtrails, and it's impossible to miss, and he has this thing about breathing air with trade, the carbon, all that crap, is he going to get smart enough that breathing aluminum and all these other chemicals might be a little bit harmful to the environment?
Are you talking about Mr. Brown? That is in Governor Jerry Brown? Jerry Brown is fully aware of geoengineering. He's fully aware.
Now, how do we get him to actually stop it or pretend that he's a governor and he wants our welfare?
He's not going to stop. He's part of the problem.
Yeah.
He's part of the plan. And you need to understand that he's not helping. He's here not to serve, he's here to destroy. And a radio personality can say that. But that's his objective. Just like all the other wacko environmentalists that are out there. Now, I'm a wacko environmentalist because I'm a biologist and environmentalist. You know, I used to teach environmental sciences and so on. So I can say that with some authority. But that's not his mission. And you need to understand that. His mission is to further the drought. Hence Jerry's law. Does that answer your question? Somewhat? Well, actually, I got to tell you something. Former school administrator, having dealt with those things, I support the Supreme Court decision. It was the school administration that would falter. They're the ones that people's attention should be focused on. Having been a school administrator, I can say that. Yes, ma'am. They're very confusing. Yes, we do. Chris Street actually talks more about that because, as you know, he is actually a worldwide specialist in that. But the ones that we talk about are the ones that Jerry Brown gets involved with. The various PACs that he gets involved with to try and develop regionalism across the United States from governor to governor. And it actually involves Mexico and Canada, which are highly illegal.
Paul, could you repeat the questions? A lot of people can't hear the question.
The question was, you know, do you get into talking about agreements and treaties and that sort of thing? And yes, we do on the radio show. And NAFTA, all that stuff.
We don't want a TPA.
Which one's TPA?
That's fast track of Obama. He gets to do what he wants to do, and the legislation will care less about it.
No. If you haven't noticed, he's lawless. Okay? This is called lawlessness. And I do tell everybody on the radio show, even though the administration and what we're seeing at the state and local levels, we've seen more and more lawlessness going on, ignoring of the laws. That's where this reflexive law comes in. They're interpreting the law any way they want to. And, well, you have to take that up with them. You know, and everybody else should too. But when they're not listening, that's a problem. When they're not following through, that's a problem. When they're taking bribes, that's a problem. Yes, ma'am. Carl?
I would like to point out the screens on the two sides of you. Do you see behind you?
Oh. Yeah, that's
Thanks to
the wiki man. man?
The Wiki Man, who has been in
Where's
this
the Wiki
meeting
Man?
room.
Oh, he's signing over there.
Thank you.
Santos
Wiki
is
Man.
my engineer, by the way,
Yes, he is.
for the radio show. Yes, ma'am.
Would you run down the 7 states that you said Jay Helm is already planned for? I didn't get it written down.
How many of you just heard the term Operation Jade Helm? 15.
Just heard it or heard it?
Just heard of it. There isn't any other way to put it, but this is the implementation of martial law in the United States. It's military operations being conducted in Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, California, Utah, Nevada, and Colorado. However, when you take a look at it, they're actually going coast to coast now. Those are just the first states that they announced. Now, does anybody kind of get a clue about the southwestern states that I mentioned? Does it involve anything else? Mexico. And that is the land of Aztlan. All those states. It's also the states that are getting the largest infusion of humanity this country's ever known. That's where all these people are going, all the immigrants. Now, I always say on the radio show, and I believe this, and I used to deal with this as a school administrator, this is nothing more than human trafficking. It is not about immigration. It's not illegal or legal immigration. This is human trafficking. And you can include sex trafficking. $31 billion a year. Human trafficking. Do you think the Obama administration is into that? Absolutely. It's big money for the cartels. Don't think anything else. When you think of this, think of it as human trafficking. Yeah.
I was going to ask the senator, but we ran out of time.
So you asked me. I get out of it.
I found out recently from our voter registration in Yuba County that somebody can go from county to state on a particular issue, and they could vote multiple times. And I'm wondering why that's happening, when I thought we were only allowed to vote once.
It's called voter fraud. It's called voter fraud. And there was a movie with Leonardo DiCaprio where he was an airline pilot, remember that? And it was called Catch Me If You Can.
Well, I was told, like, at the pot meeting a couple of weeks ago in Yuba County, that one of the pot heads admitted to me that they go from county to county, whatever ordinance they have on voting, they put up residency there in that county to vote, and then they go on to the next one.
Right,
That has that same issue, and they vote there.
right.
And I'm wondering, how is that legal?
Well, it's not legal, but you're probably not going to get Kamala Harris to enforce the laws there. Wouldn't you agree? No.
Well, that's what I was going to ask the senator, but I ran out of time. Senator, how can we stop that?
You're going to shorten his height some more, about a half an inch.
Well,
No, I did talk about it. I remember we talking about all the things that the legislators have done for decades to get the voter, higher voter turnout. None of them worked, but I did say it was a particular party wanting to get their voter
Right.
turnout.
That's called corruption. It's
And
happening.
guess what? Prop 47 is going to make a lot of felons voting.
Yeah, we're entering that era in our state's history and in our own national history of complete corruption. And that's the intent of this administration, is to make sure that we go lawless. And they're being aided and abetted by the Mexican cartels, actually the cartels worldwide. And that's what's happening right now. You're seeing it unfold. Not very comfortable, is it? No, it's not the rule of law. Any more questions? One more? No.
Okay, you're done.
There is blue. Okay, Operation Jade Helm. A couple of things are happening with Operation Jade Helm. This is an unconventional warfare maneuver, and it's going to start happening in those primary states, but also all throughout the nation, starting in July. It's going to run 8 weeks through September. Now, you won't see these people operating. About 1,200 special operators. How many have heard this before? Mentioned, okay. For you first-timers, you haven't. They're going to work at night. You won't see them. And they're going to develop contacts within the communities that they're in. Intelligence contacts. And they're going to conduct training exercises at night on how to be, I guess you could say, subversive within the community. It's our military. I don't think that's the way to operate the military. But that's happening. Now that is spread. You probably heard about Orlando, Florida. I think it was Fort Lauderdale. You heard about that? They were conducting these exercises at night with helicopters and doing mock arrest of citizens. So this is what they're doing. The faces are like, wow. There is some glimmer of hope here. One of the things that they're doing, interestingly enough, is that the government actually is asking permission from the cities, counties, and local agencies. Actually, they're asking for their invitation. You ever heard of that?
Yeah.
That's kind of new, isn't it? What they're getting is authorization coordination. How many have heard that term before? That's what CARB does not do. They don't do any authorization coordination, which is illegal. By law, federal and state law, they have to coordinate their activities within communities, whatever they're going to be. CARB has to ask permission to be operating or to fine you. And they haven't done it. That's why there's a lawsuit coming out. So what the federal government figured out is we're going to send out letters, invite the communities to ask us to come in. And that's what they did. And you know what? The communities, they came, right? They sent letters out to the Army and said, yeah, you want to conduct a maneuver here? No problem. And you can coordinate all the activities you want to. And that's what they've been doing. And they've been granting those permissions in many of the states and communities. Lambs to the slaughter. Literally. Now, it's probably pretty frightening, and it should be. But they actually picked up on the tactic that people have been telling them that they had to use with the EPA and other organizations. Coordination, authorization. Now, how do we stop that? Stand left. Make sure your local community does not accept an invitation or ask for an invitation. That's the first thing. We don't need special operators in our communities. If you know of any communities that have accepted, then we need to work on them diligently to rescind it and stop it. Here's the deal. This is why they did it. Remember Clive and Bundy?
Yep.
What was the deal there? No contract, no nothing. Clive and Bundy recognized in 1993 that his lease was not, quote, from my country, that the Clinton administration wanted him to sign, and he's never signed the lease. Never has. But there was another factor with the whole Bundy Ranch thing. Now, Cliven was here, actually, those of you who came to Liberty Tour. But there was another issue. What was that? Federal people came onto his land, did all this other stuff, brought guns, going to kill people. Took his cows. What didn't they do? They didn't get coordination authorization. They learned their lesson from Clive and Bundy. So they're learning. That tells me how really stupid this operation really is, from the president on down. Have you ever really kind of gotten the feeling these are a bunch of stupid people? I mean, really, it's obvious. I mean, so I'm very hopeful at this point. So they're out there doing all this coordination of authorization. One thing it gives up. Let's see. We had a sheriff out here. What was his name?
Richard Mack.
Richard Mack. And what does he stand for?
Constitution.
Constitutional sheriff. Which means what?
He's the leader in the county.
He's the leader in the county, like county supervisors and so on. And they can tell the feds to get out, right?
Yeah.
Not if you accept the invitation. Not if you agree to coordination authorization.
George.
Fred Kelly Grant, the attorney that's working on the card case up here in Reading, former federal prosecutor out of Baltimore. He and I talk all the time. I ran the scenario by him. Constitutional sheriff goes out the window with the agreements. Military takes over. At least they'll make that case. It's called reflexive law, which means nothing, only to the people who have power right there in the community. Does that make sense? And who's got the power in the community? The military, if you let them in. So we're trying to get the word out to communities, don't let them in. Take away their authority right away. Rescind it. Disallow them from coming in. Because I don't know about you, but I think there's only one thing they want to do. What do you think they want to do? Right. If you start to listen to the way these people operate, and by the way, go to agenda21radio.com, and you can see on the website some of the presentations made by these various military guys. They operate like the Nazis. It's identical to what they did in the 30s by coming into the communities, developing networks of intelligence amongst people, and then what do you think they're going to do? Ask the people to do what on one another? Exactly. You disallow them from coming in to begin with. Well, you don't ask them to come. You see, this is the whole thing about Agenda 21 issues. Reflexive law. You end up, in the long run, doing it to yourself. Bringing it upon yourself. That's the way the left thinks. That's the way these monsters think. Yeah?
How do you find out what communities are inviting them in?
Well, it's interesting. My people contacted the Department of Army. We don't want to tell you that. So basically, we're left to going around and talking in a loose network of people that I know to find out how many communities have actually done that. And by the way, other communities, small community, give out $200,000 over 8 weeks. If they leave, that's a different issue. So that's how we have to find out. I don't know if they're going to do anything up here, this far north, but I do know Southern California, a big portion of it, has been considered to be a hostile area at the border. Question? They won't let us see contracts. We've seen agendas and minutes, but we haven't seen contracts yet. And I can tell you that the people that I've seen on videos, the city councilmen and the county people, they are fat, dumb, and happy. I'm sure they haven't read anything about what's going on there. Yeah. Yeah.
I was
Yes,
here
ma'am.
a while back, and I thought that somebody said that there was already Agenda 21 started kind of south of here.
Ma'am, it started everywhere.
Well, you said that. I want to find out who let them in.
You mean the military in these communities?
I thought they bought up land or something, and then there was taking over an area.
Not sure what you mean by that, but what they're attempting to do is bring in the military into small communities, and what they'll do is get the communities to invite them in. they sent out a letter to the communities and said, we want to plan all these different maneuvers going on and utilize your community and your people. And so the community says, sure, here's the letter. You come in, we'll put in a resolution, we'll vote on the resolution, and you're in. And by the way, as soon as they vote on the resolution, it's effective immediately.
So we don't have anything in the immediate area?
I'm not aware of that, no. And I'm here to tell you, look for that. Confront your city council members. Confront, I mean confront. Don't be nice about it. Be polite, be firm, and ask them about that. I'm here to tell you that. Anybody who had the county or city's agencies, and even private landowners.
What did they use bribes to get them to do their
Sure. Well, they tell them, we're going to rent your land, and we'll give you $500,000 for 8 weeks. But you invited us, and you better look at the contract and think what's called reflexive law. Because it'll stay there. Any more on that? Operation Jade Helm.
Just one minute.
Yes.
I heard the guy speak, Thomas Mead, in the program, and
Thomas Mead was the military contractor for the Army.
he made reference to rural communities.
Correct.
It seems to me that they would be focusing on places like the North State because we sort of rock boats.
Well, we're also a big landmass. But they're really not right now. What they're doing is and this is a good point, though, I'm glad you bring it up. They're focusing on the southern tier first. And the southern tier first is where basically you have all the illegals going. All the human trafficked people going. That's the primary area.
That's what the money part of it?
Well, the money part of it is at each individual who comes across. It's a lot of money. Yeah. You have a question?
There's a Facebook event going on right now called Counter Operation Jade Helm. You guys might want to check that out.
Can you send me a link? And
Yes.
okay. So that's a good one to know. That these things are, it's just now kind of like, I guess you can say it's like Common Core. When we came out and talked about Common Core and all that stuff a couple of years ago, everybody thought I was nuts. It's a federalization of public schools. That's what it is. Real simple. That's what this is. The federal. In the case of Common Core, what did they do to the state of California? We have this great program, Race to the Top. And what happened with Arnold Schwarzenegger? Hook, line, and what? Sinker. Sunk. That's right. And I was getting calls at that time, in January of 2010, from people in the legislature, people in the Department of Education saying, Paul, we're giving away our 10th Amendment right. I said, it sure seems like we are. And we were, and we have. To educate our kids. But you see, what we did was invite it in, didn't we? Didn't we do that? We didn't have any money in our public education system. Schools had been denied money. At that time, I think most the school districts in general were owed about $13 billion, or is it 12 or 13? About $13 billion. They were desperate for cash. Now, if you're thinking, there may be a bigger thing going on here, you're right. Of course they were strapped for cash. This was a process that went on for about 12 years before that. So the timing was right. No reauthorization of No Child Left Behind. Oh, we'll leave that up to Obama to take care of. Well, he came up with Race to the Top, which meant in order for you to apply for the grant program, your legislature has to pass a law that gives up your constitutional right to educate your children in your state. And so we did. And what happened the first time we got a grant application? We didn't get it. But what did we do? We gave up our constitutional right. And that's where we stand today. The Common Core has taken off like a prairie fire. This will too. I think when you start getting the social people involved with it, people are starting to gear up and find out, and now we're still, I think mid-July is when things are really going to start ramping up. But it is going on right now in different states. They just haven't told you.
You got a man running for president, he believes in it.
Not my man.
No, not you.
No, I'll just say it straight up because I do it on the radio. Jeb Bush is a plant. There's no other way to say it. He is here to ensure that Common Core gets put in. And, you know, he's got a big business that's affiliated with it, a software company. I was asked to consult. At one point, I said, no and heck no. We aren't going to do that. But it's the powers that be that are operating this. Anything else on? Yes. Yes, ma'am.
We gotta get it that we have to look at this differently. They aren't gonna be thinking like you are. That's what you're thinking reasonably. They are thinking control. We are the objects of their focus to control us.
Yeah, that's another mindset altogether that we don't understand as Americans.
Red flag.
No, it's like a load of red bricks is what it is. But I mean, the urgency here, you know, we just really have ramped it up quite a bit in terms of what they're doing, okay, with Operation Jade Helm. And I talk about it on the radio all the time. And I'll be giving you updates all the time on what's been going on with it, every day. Okay, brown line or immigration? Immigration? Okay, immigration. Immigration. I'm trying to make this very clear with everybody. Run the numbers on how much an El Salvadoran 10-year-old would be valued as they come across the American border. Without family. Because, you know, how many are we getting? 100,000 or so? Oh, by the way, I want to straighten something up. I think somebody came up with a question about the driver's license. I said, oh, don't worry about it. It's only going to be 100 and some odd. Wasn't that the number? Article comes out today. Pardon me? Article comes out today. We screwed that number up. Over 500,000 already. I just thought I'd clear that one up. Okay, so these kids are coming across the border without their parents. We're flying them in. Did you know that? On military aircraft. Ops all the time from Central and South America into the United States. Right now as it's happening. But Paul, I thought the judge, Annan, put a stop to that. He did. He did. He put out an order, said, you can't do this. It's illegal. What did Obama do? Well, we'll just fly him in anyway. Come on in.
Hey, he's got a pen, don't you know?
No, yeah, I know he's got a phone too. So he sits there. What happens is that the attorneys generals go out and file another suit. And the judge is going, what's wrong with you guys? The president's lying to me. So we're going to put sanctions on you. He better knock it off. What's going on? He's just doing his thing. That's called a dictator. Okay, that's called a dictator. Just being blunt. We have to look at him in those terms.
That's what he is.
And you have to sit there and say to yourself, and go, I'm trying to walk you through this little psychology thing here. You can be, disappointed, upset, and in your gut, how could this happen in my country? It's happening. It is happening. And we need to wake up and stop it, and be aware of it, and take it back, and we can. And quite frankly, we are. And I'll tell you that in a second. But this is the kind of stuff that's going on. Wake up, realize it, now let's do something about it. It's really important that we do. Yes, sir?
Have you heard anything else about the school, the private schools making up in Live Oak about bringing anybody in there?
I haven't. Anybody heard anything about that? Kids being brought into Live Oak, Leo Chesney?
Prison?
Still sitting there empty. Let me tell you why it's empty. Because of you guys.
Yeah.
Leo Chesney's empty because of you guys. They had their sights on opening Leo Chesney with kids. It's closed. For right now. You might remember that. Some of you remember the Tea Party. We talked about that. Still has the option to open it up. It's owned by a company in Miami. They own the beds. Now you come in there and you bring the kids in without their parents, and it's about $8,000 a month per kid to that company. That's called human trafficking.
Does he answer your question? $84,000 for each kid.
Does that help you guys understand what's going on? That's what we're dealing with here. And by the way, what did the president sign when he signed those executive orders? He signed the New Americans program and the Receiving Communities program. Those are the two he signed. The amnesty one, he didn't want to sign that. So Jay Johnson signed a memorandum of understanding, not an executive order. Never put it in the Federal Registry. But they did it anyway. That's why the judge stopped it. But Obama said, we'll just keep going. See how that works? Why did Obama do that? And I credit the Tea Party with this. Called impeachment.
Yep.
He was told they would impeach immediately because that is illegal. So what they did is they wrote it into a statute but didn't put it into law and said, oh, we wrote it down. That's called reflexive law. Get it? Somebody wrote it down, somebody approved it, so it's okay. That's the way they think. If you think that way, you can do anything you want, right? Oh, there's a stop sign. I'm going to write myself a note. It's okay to not stop at the stop sign. So what do? You drive right through it, right? Reflexive law. That's what they're doing with every single one of these. Okay. I think you left before I talked about Brown's Law. Why? Okay, Jerry Brown. Jerry Brown is lying to you as a sociopathic liar would lie to you. Okay, just like Obama. Now the lesson I try and teach everybody with Obama is if Obama's talking, he's lying. Or if you, actually he's not. To a sociopath, he's telling you the truth. You just have to interpret the truth, right? So I tell people, believe the exact opposite and you're good to go. So if you want to keep your doctor, as Obama said, okay, I'm not going to keep my doctor. That's the way it works. And Jerry Brown's doing the same thing with this whole geoengineering business. He is aware of geoengineering, as is his staff, as are a lot of people in the state capitol. It's the elephant in the room in many places in the state capitol. And people have expressed to me from the state capitol, they can't believe, as they find out, that this is happening to people. That no one's ready to talk about it. I am. I'm happy to talk about it.
Hit 'em up.
Okay, Brown's Law, immigration. Anything else? I think I've done covered enough territory here.
Yep.
It's getting late.
It's almost happy hour.
Well, it's almost time for you, when you leave here, to turn on your radio at 14:10 a.m. as you leave tonight, and you get to third hour tonight, okay? I put on the first hour of tonight's show, especially in the third hour, so that you can get all the details and some more details on what we're talking about here. Yes, sir, one more question.
What time is that show? I tried to find it last time.
7 to 10. You probably got a baseball game on Friday or Thursday. 7. Okay, if that sucks, call this number and tell them it sucks. 742-5555 and ask for Tom Huth. He's gonna hate me. 742-5555. Now you can leave a number on the recorder there.
Tell them you need a new transmitter too.
He's gonna. He's good with it. Yes.
You might be able to get it on 1560.
During the daytime. 1560 live, 12 to 3 every day. 1560 a.m. We're on. Any more questions? One more? No more? Going, listen. 14:10 a.m. as you leave here tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul.